My name is James Henderson with the Northwest Missourian, and this is Robert Barnes, a student at Northwest who's going to go home to Ferguson, getting his opinion on the decision and aftermath that happened last night in Ferguson. So what was last night like for you?
Probably one of the worst nights I've had in a while, I'd say. Just between calling relatives to make sure they're safe and, rumors, people are like, your sister's on the news. Hearing the various opinions, everybody's got one, you're entitled to it, but it's a very divisive issue. It's very racially charged, I feel, so it's been interesting.
How did you feel seeing all of the destruction on TV?
It was really surreal, I found myself walking here this morning kind of expecting to see everything destroyed. I felt like I was home for a moment. It felt very distant, but at the same time, you could tell it was real, It was very much grounded in reality. These were the repercussions of, I guess, the verdict that the public didn't approve of.
What did you think of the decision? Was it the right one?
I feel that this wasn't surprising by any stretch of the imagination. People have been saying all along, when it passed up the 1 month mark, that's when the public started to get suspicious. And we felt like it doesn't take 1 month to indict somebody for murder. However, it does take this amount of time to figure out how you're going to explain why you're not indicting them for murder. Hence McCullough's long statement. I don't know if you watched that, but I don't feel that the indictment or the lack of indictment was the right action to take here.
What do you think about the grand jury process? Do you think 3 months of deliberation should mean probable cause for trial? If it takes them 3 months, do you think that should lead to a trial? I guess I should say.
Yeah, I feel like there should have been a trial. Just because, people tend to get restless during the wait. That was the worst part for most of the public, having to wait so long and be completely in the blind about what's going to happen or whether anything will happen at all. And to have waited 3 months to be told, basically nothing's happening. It's a bit of a letdown, I guess.
What do you think this decision means for the city?
Essentially, we have a long road ahead of us. A verdict in Michael's favor could have pushed us a few steps down, or rather closer toward achieving the goal of, revamping Ferguson's police department, kind of easing racial tensions there, but this did nothing to serve that purpose. If anything else, it's worse now than ever, from what I'm hearing, from what I'm seeing.
What do you think this decision means for the nation as a whole?
It's just, I guess, one more battle of many between a system that can legally oppress you. That's been my biggest qualm with the verdict. People go, well, clearly he wasn't guilty if he didn't get charged. And I'm like, when the system is swayed in your favor because you were working for a government institution, I don't ever expect why the little guy would win unless the evidence is overwhelming. For example, you have a kid who was shot for holding a BB gun. I want to say just yesterday, 12 years old. Stuff like that, blatantly guilty. Of course, they'll find that. But when you reach matters like Michael, it's a bit of a gray area. And of course, the cops' court always wins out. I don't see anything new here. This happens nearly once a year, I'd say.
Do you think that this issue is an issue of race, or rather an issue of defining what police officers are capable of doing?
It's all at once, both of those problems, but it's much bigger. Race plays a factor, but in this particular trial, and all the ones you see that are similar to it in the past decade, people will implore you not to play the race card, and at which point, I raise the point, this is a human rights issue then, Look at me as your equal, as another man, as another human being in general. People question why protesters feel okay saying, you know, we want him dead or we want him brought to justice. And they ask you to wait for a fair trial, let the government run its course, and then you stop to think about where was all that for Michael. I don't really have words to even kind of sum up the amount of things weighing on this. But yes, this is definitely racial. This happens to minorities more than any other group.
He was found innocent in the court of law, but how do you think he will turn out in the court of public opinion? Do you think there'll ever be any redemption for Officer Darren Wilson? I'm sorry.
No. I think you can kind of get a very nice hold on what public opinion of him is right now just by watching the news. Granted, the media is everywhere in Ferguson right now, so it's a bit of a spectacle. You know, it's been put into the limelight. It's at the forefront of the nation's eye right now. But these buildings burning, these lootings, these protests, these are all in direct response to an action committed by him. I don't think Ferguson would be the best place to be for him right now, or you know, anywhere near for that matter.
They pushed back the decision for many reasons involving safety for students, workers, traffic, and in the end they hoped the weather would deter the violence. Do you think that pushing the decision back this far was a good idea?
I think that had they taken more precautionary measures, it would have been a good idea. However, at this point, what I saw happening was that this decision was delayed for months on end, and when it finally came to fruition, there was nothing in place that would have lessened the negative impacts that they expected. It's as if they knew that this was going to happen and did little to nothing to stop it besides saying, okay, we'll wait a while. I guess they expected the tensions to sort of die down, when in fact waiting typically does the exact opposite. You know, suspense arises as you have to wait for a decision this heavy.
Mm-hmm. How in touch were you with your family last night?
I just checked in to call my mom around 7:30, and from there on out, I found myself on the phone for a solid 2 hours, just in kind of solidarity with them, because I talked to my mom and then my father and then my grandma picked up the line, and I found more and more of my classmates just kind of sitting beside me, just being, you know. But I remained in contact with them all throughout the night. Like, I barely slept, actually.
And are they all okay?
Yeah, they're all fine.
Okay, that's good. What do you think you're going to be returning home to?
It doesn't look too good. I mentioned my father in the last interview we did. What he called me yesterday, and he's not making light of it, but I can definitely see how he kind of wants me to be inside when I get back. He's just suggested little things like, you know, check out a couple of good books, call a couple of friends over, but all signs of support toward him wanting me to stay in. And my mom sent me pictures on her way to work this morning, and it looks awful. Not even just in Ferguson. From, I guess, the little 15-minute drive from Hazelwood to Ferguson, there's wreckage everywhere. And this is just day one, so.
Are you nervous about going home? Are you scared at all?
Marginally. I'm not any more scared than I am waking up any other day, you know? For me, that's why I felt that people really ought to care about this issue, because like I said, this is a human rights issue. This is bigger than one person. This is the concept that we're playing with, the thought that this could happen to you. You could have God knows how many credentials. You could be however much more intelligent than the rest of your peers. You could be extremely talented, and you could be dead in the streets. And after 3 months of waiting, nothing could happen about it. This could have been any of my friends back home, me, you even. It should really scare people.
Have you been paying attention to the conversation on social media? If so, how does it make you feel? Are you participating at all?
I've kind of had a voice in it, so yeah, I've been participating. as time has went on, a lot of the more logical debate that's been occurring has somewhat degenerated, and now it's basically just you have people who are outside the situation, and by outside I mean extremely removed, like 100 miles plus away from it, who are weighing in saying, you know, the protest should stop, the looting should stop, the riots should stop. I never felt like it was the duty of anybody outside of Ferguson to dictate when the protesters should go home. I feel like, you know, they'll go home when we see change regarding this issue, but until then, no.
You talked about in our last interview how you really wanted to be a part of the protests, and the peaceful ones, that is. Are you still planning on participating, if there are any, when you get back? Or is the situation too volatile for you to want to get involved in?
It's volatile, yes. You know, tensions are higher than ever. There's more risk now than ever before of being hurt because of it, or arrested because of your involvement. But at those very same times, I feel it's most crucial that you do get involved, that you do speak out. Because if you wait until this sinks back into the recesses of the public mind and it's no longer as relevant, then your impact is lessened a little. I feel like now would be the time to be heard if there was one, especially in a sort of contrast to all the negative, I guess, civil unrest that we have. It would be important to have a positive voice. Yeah.
Do you think the community will ever feel justice for Michael?
Maybe 50, 60 years from now, after I've had my children are growing up, and we finally see that change, that everyone wants to be in this country, maybe at that point we'll be able to look back and say, you know, it's actually different now. You know, we saw a change. But to even consider feeling that in my lifetime it seems like a stretch, just because, you know, you look at King, he started a movement but never really got to see it finished. I feel like we're kind of continuing the fight, but we won't be the ones to end it.
Do you think that the community will be able to come together after this, or do you think the problems will just get worse?
I think that if the last time the riots flared up, when the shooting occurred, it's any indicator that they'll band together after people kind of open their eyes to the fact that many of these people who are destroying our community aren't a part of it. They don't have to live here. They won't wake up the next day and step outside and smell a burning building, or see, you know, a fallen over stop sign, or realize that a couple of their neighbors might not be alive or might be hospitalized. I feel that we're going to come together as soon as everyone realizes, you know, the kind of crimes being committed under that pretense, assuming that, you know, that an eye for an eye is okay, that Wilson not being indicted is justification to destroy our community.
Do you have anything that you would want to say to people who are on social media talking about, you know, one side or the other, that aren't really a part of the situation? Is there anything you'd want to say to that?
I think it's important for people to have a voice in these situations. So while it gets tiresome to actually be from there and know that just about anybody you speak to 6 hours away will have an entire manifesto on how we should conduct ourselves, that definitely gets old fast, but more power to it, because, you know, what is any movement or argument or debate without strong opposition? I can't knock them for weighing in on it. As long as they do so intelligently, I don't mind.
Do you see this as the end of the riots and the protests, or do you feel like there's going to be more to come?
there'll be more to come. And I say this just considering last time. Last time we had 9 days about near of riots. And then there was a week where everything was kind of brought to a standstill. Everybody went home. And then they came back the following week for more days. And that was before we even knew that Wilson wouldn't actually be charged. So now that the verdict has been made public knowledge, as more people find out and kind of wake up to this news, because a lot of people did go to sleep last night and probably haven't woken up yet and realized what went down, I don't see these calming down for a while, especially with the fact that Nixon called for the National Guard to essentially send backup. It's only going to get worse from here because this is just day one. So yeah, I see more riots for sure.
All right, well, that's all we have for you today. Be safe going home. Good luck with
Right.
with everything, and I'll talk to you after Thanksgiving.